If you're sitting the new UCAT, we've only had 1 year of it so far. So what is considered a good score is less obvious now that it's out of only 2,700. So in this video, I'm going to talk you through the 4 brackets that matter. What is basically the minimum score you require, what's considered a good score, what's going to get you to most interviews, and what is top. And then I'm going to look at how that compares to different universities so you can understand what data matters to you and show you at the very end which thresholds have actually lowered. So before I show you the first bracket quickly, the data that we got is a combination of what's on the UCAT official website and the FutureDoc database, which we take from universities directly via Freedom of Information requests. So that plus real cases from students that I'll show you to illustrate. Just to say that some of the UCAT scores that I'm going to say for our students are a little bit lower because we help on the predictable offer protocol with all of the application, which means that they probably get away with a slightly lower score, but it's still good enough to guide you. So the first bracket is, what's the minimum score that I've seen people get in with? And on the FutureDoc program, we had a student that got in with a 1770, but that puts you in the 4th decile, so really in the bottom 40%. And also it means that you really have slim pickings and you really have to make sure that everything else goes right about the application. Bracket number 2 is where most offers come from, and that is in the top 3 deciles. That's really where you want to be, at least if you want to have a good choice of universities and you want them to take your application seriously. Now that lies last year at about 2010. It's also worth mentioning the SJT band. So the best you can score is 1, the worst you can score is 4. Typically, you really have to be in the top 2 bands to be taken seriously. There are a few universities that will take band 3, but really you are limited if you only score that high. Now, bracket 3 is for the people who want to get into the, let's say, top universities. Maybe not the top ones, but what I'd call the second tier. And in a moment, I'm going to discuss which universities those are. But that means that people need to score in the top decile, which means they need a score of 2,220. Now, on the FutureDoc program, that is what we're coaching people to do, to get into that top decile and take control of the application. Remember, the UCAT is not the only thing that matters. Having a really good rounded application and making everything else well is really what elevates someone's application. You can get people who don't get a great UCAT score and can get into a good university with a good application. You can also get people who get a great UCAT score and don't get anywhere if they've ignored all the other stuff. So on the FutureDoc program, we have the UCatalyst method, which is a 6-step process to get people into that top decile. And you can check out the methodology on the website, but also it's part of a bigger predictable offer protocol where we look at all the important things you need to make a really strong application to give people the best chance of getting in. And that's why we have a 93% success rate. So then bracket number 4 is beyond the top decile. This is people in the 95th percentile. Now, this is people who have scored a 2,310 or above. So these are the people who are really likely to get into your Oxbridge, so Oxford or Cambridge, and are kind of top of the pile and have their pick of the litter when it comes to application. So let's look at how that translates to specific universities, and I'll give you some real cases to kind of illustrate. So let's look at Cambridge. So first of all, that's, typically you're looking in the 3,000s before on the old score. Now, the lowest score that somebody got on the FutureDoc program that got into Cambridge was 2,300. Remember, that is the lowest of someone who got in. So the other Cambridge people got higher than that. Next, we have Newcastle, which had a very clear cut-off point under the old system of 2,850. Our lowest scoring Newcastle student got 2,270. Then for King's, typically students were aiming for a 2,810 before. Our lowest scoring UCAT student that got into King's was a 2,130. Warwick for the grads was typically a minimum of 2,600, 2,700 under the old system. Under the new system, the lowest that somebody in our cohort that got into Warwick with the lowest UCAT score was 1,970. And then we have Exeter, which is weighted, so it's not a cut-off, but that was typically around, the minimum was about 2,600, but typically 2,700 was what got you into Exeter. This year, the lowest scoring person that got into Exeter got a 1990. But really, the thing to bear in mind is that although the raw numbers have changed, the thing that matters, which is the percentile, hasn't. So still scoring in the top percentile or above is really important. So if you are serious about getting in, I would say that the minimum that you want to aim for is a 2,050. If you're ambitious and want to go for that second tier of universities, like I said, I'd say you're aiming for about a 2,200. And if you really want to go for the upper echelon, top most competitive universities, basically your Oxbridge universities, you're thinking of 2,300 really. If you want to look at our 6-step UCatalyst method, you can check out the website for a step-by-step process of how to prepare for your UCAT and do well. But if you want to see a playlist of me attempting some UCAT questions and talking through my thinking and how to attempt them, check out this playlist here. Otherwise, best of luck with the UCAT. Remember, it's not just about the UCAT, it's everything else that goes with it that's going to make a good application. So, best of luck, and I'll see you in the next video.